Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing our next video in the IPF Powerlifting Rulebook series, basically where I'm going through step by step the rules of the squat, bench press, and deadlift, and any other technical rules that you may need to know leading into your first meet. So this is the second video of the 3 lifts. So today we're going to take a look at the bench press and the standards that you're going to have to be prepared for completing the bench press on meet day. And I will kind of say up front, of the 3 lifts, the bench press is the most technical from a powerlifting standpoint. There are more commands than the other 2. There are more technicalities where you can miss a lift other than strength on the bench press. So as a new lifter, it is important to kind of look through this rule book and be familiar with these rules. That way you don't get a red light and miss a lift that otherwise would be good. Okay, so starting first, the bench shall be placed on the platform with the head facing the front, angled up to 45 degrees. Chief referee position himself at the head of the bench press rack. All that's saying is whenever you compete, your feet will be facing away from the audience, and there will be a head judge behind you, and then 2 side judges on either side. Basically, you have to lay on your back with your head, shoulders, and butt all in contact with the bench. This is the head positioning rule is specific to the IPF. So if you compete in the USAPL or USPA, you do not have to have your head in contact with the bench. But if you're competing Powerlifting America or IPF, you're going to have to keep your head down. So that's important to know. Know what federation you're competing in and what the rule is with keeping your head down. Okay. It says there's a picture down below, so we'll check that out. And has to be in contact, has to remain in contact for you to get the start command from the referee. So essentially, you're going to get the bar out of the rack. You are allowed to ask for a handoff, so make sure you're specific with the handoff guy on meet day. If you don't want a handoff, just be like, hey, I've got it. Thank you anyway, kind of thing. Let's take a look. This is another IPF specific rule. Feet must be flat on the floor, or flat as the shape of the shoe will allow. I have heard kind of not good stories about people who are wearing tennis shoes and they get called for not having their feet flat. So just be aware of that. I've always used Olympic lifting shoes or some sort of wrestling shoe whenever I'm benching to try and make that as obvious as possible that I have my feet flat. Let's see. Hands must grip the bar, positioned in the rack, stands. Another specific rule, notice we've got a lot of these. In IPF affiliates, you have to wrap your thumb around the bar like a complete grip. You cannot have a false grip or a suicide grip on the bar. Once again, if you're competing USPA, check their rule book. I think they allow a false grip or some of these other federations. But if you're competing IPF or IPF affiliate, you're going to have to wrap your thumb around the bar. Okay, positions shall be maintained. Foot movement is permissible. So you're allowed to slide your feet, but you're not allowed to pick them up, right? Or get up on your toes. So keep that in mind in your training. During the setup on the bench, athlete is not allowed to place his or her feet on the bench. Basically, people put their feet up to get a bigger arch. They disallowed that in the IPF this year. There we go. Hair must not hide the back of the head. So if you have long hair, you're going to have to pull that up just so the referees can see and make sure you have your head actually on the bench. Okay. To achieve firm footing, lifter may use flat surface shoes, blah, blah, blah. They do offer blocks up to 30 centimeters in total height. Sometimes at local meets, they'll use plates if they don't have the official blocks. You just need to ask the referees for that during weigh-ins, basically. Give them a heads up, say, I want blocks. It's rare that you see someone use it, but this is a rule and it is allowed. So if you are someone who struggles to get your feet down, especially if you're a little bit shorter, this might be a good rule to know. And this is one of the benefits of going through the rule book before you go into a meet. Okay. Rule number 4, no more than 5, not less than 2 spotters and loaders shall be on the platform. Okay, we covered that in the squat, so we'll just kind of skip over that. That's more of a platform rule. Spacing of the hands shall not exceed 81 centimeters measured between the forefingers, aka your pointer finger cannot be outside of the power rings of the bar. You know, you have those 2 smooth rings that are on a power bar. You have to be in contact with that or inside, essentially, to get the start command. And I have seen someone get a red light for that before. So interesting thing to know. And then use of reverse grip. Reverse grip would be grabbing the bar underhand like this, and it is forbidden. Okay, so after you get the bar out of the rack, you can have the help of a spotter or loader. Like I said, you can have a lift off. You're going to wait with your arms straight, feet on the floor, butt on the bench, head on the bench, shoulders on the bench, right? In this position until the referee tells you start. At that point, you're going to lower it down to your chest. The rule with the pause is the bar has to be motionless. So the quicker you get the bar stopped, theoretically, the quicker you should get a press command, right? And at that point, whenever they say press, that's when you can press it out. If you go down and then you kind of bobble it back and forth, or you sink it, you're going to get a longer press command because they're waiting for that bar to stop. Now, with less experienced referees, sometimes you'll get inconsistent press commands, but that's how the rules are read, right? So you're going to bring it down, you'll get the press command, you'll bring it all the way up, just like the squat. There can be no downward movement, right? It has to be a smooth up. Once you get it fully extended, you will wait for a rack command, and then you'll put it back. So there are 3 commands on the bench: the start, press, and the rack. Okay, there we go. Signal to begin the attempt is a downward movement of the arm like this with a start command. I have no idea why there's a downward movement of the arm. You can't see them because you're laying on the bench. After receiving the signal, okay, I just kind of explained all of this. The only thing that we need to highlight is the IPF's depth rule for bench that they recently added. Basically, the referees are going to be looking for your elbow in relation to your shoulder. Okay, so, and there are some pictures. We will take a look at it. Essentially, they were trying to avoid overarching in the bench press and super tiny ranges of motion, replaced it with a rule. If that rule helps or not, that's up for debate. But this is just how it's read. No, if you're competing in the USAPL, USPA, or any of these others, there is not going to be the same depth rule. So you won't have to worry about that. But in this case, especially since I compete in the IPF, I am going to go through that rule. All right, here we've got rules for being disabled competing in the IPF. Single lift bench press championships. Essentially, there's a Paralympics side of bench pressing. I'm not going to read this fully, but if you are interested or in that camp, then feel free. Go ahead and go find this. This rule book can be found online just by looking up IPF technical rule book. So it is not hidden. All right, now we're taking a look at some of these pictures, and I'll be honest, I it is not super clear to me, right? Even as a competitor, I have a long range of motion for my bench, and I was still worried I was going to get red lighted. Turns out I don't have an issue, but that's kind of an example of how these rules are kind of confusing, but we'll pick them apart the best I can. Notice this is a good lift. What they're supposed to be looking for is the top of the elbow is below the midpoint on the shoulder, right? And for this lifter, it looks like the midpoint as he's arched is like the top of his anterior delt, which for me, it seems like it would be easier because you don't have an x-ray. This is so tough on the judges, I feel like, but why not just make it the back of the shoulder? So, you know, if the elbow goes below the bench, that seems like it would be easier, but, you know, I'm just telling you how it is, okay? It's the top of the shoulder joint to the elbow, and see how he's below. So this would be a good lift. Now, if we go down, right, this is another good lift example. This one's a little more clear to me. See, the elbow is well below the top of the shoulder. So good. Are they going to show us a no lift? Yeah, they are. Okay, so notice this is what they're trying to avoid. Good or bad, I'm not really putting my input out there, but see how the elbow is way up here. They are touching the bar, and the shoulder joint's back here. This could be a good lift in the past, but now that lifter would get a red light for elbow depth. Here's another example. Right, I think we're getting the idea. I'm not going to pick it apart. Now, with these new rules, you still have to keep your head, shoulders, butt, and feet all flat on the surface. So keep that in mind. I think you're going to have to worry less about this probably if you're a new lifter, and more about the technicalities of your joints and where they are on the bench, you know. Head, shoulders, butt, and feet. So scrolling, there we go. Proper starting position. So this shows that this lifter has feet flat on the ground, arms fully extended, butt and shoulders and head all in contact with the bench. Notice you are allowed to have an arch as long as you keep contact here. So keep that in mind, especially if you're new. Feel free to arch a little bit, as long as you're within these specifications. Here's another extreme example, right? They have their legs straight, which is kind of wild, but flat feet. Let me, why does that say not good? I wish they had an explanation here. Yeah, it might be another elbow depth thing, but you know, feet looks flat. I can't tell if the butt's on the bench, shoulders, and head. That would be a good starting position. But if I had to guess, maybe they're too wide on the bar, and that's why they're saying no good. This is confusing. I wish there was a better explanation. Oh, this is picture 2. Okay. Is it going to explain why? Oh, look here. There it is. The elbows, right? So shoulders in contact, feet's in contact, butt's in contact. It's the elbow depth thing again. So there you go. Now we'll quickly go over causes for failure on the bench press. And then we'll kind of call it here and leave deadlift for the next video. But essentially you have to listen to commands, okay? Once you get the start command, you cannot move from there. So if you remember back to the squat video, once you get the squat command, you cannot move your feet. Same thing with the bench. You cannot readjust once you get the start. Heaving or sinking the bar into the chest. Now, this is a subjective thing, but it's basically once you get the press command, you can't go back down and try and heave it back up, right? It has to be press straight up. Downward movement of the whole bar. So like I said, it has to be pressed out smoothly. You can stop, you can stall, you can have one side go uneven to the other, that's perfectly fine, but you cannot go back down. Let's see. If you don't touch your chest, obviously. Oh, here's one. If the bar touches the belt. So make sure you wear your belt low enough if you're wearing your belt to bench that you're not going to touch it with the bar. Okay, failure to press the bar to straight arm's length, elbows locked, completion of the lift. Essentially, you don't press it. If the spotters and loaders touch it, makes sense. Any contact of the lifter's feet to the bench or the support. So yeah, you got to keep your feet clear of the bench itself. Let's see, you can't lift your feet, but like I said, they can slide. That's totally fine. Deliberate contact between the bar and the bar rest support. So like if you pressed it up and you hit the rack and you use that as leverage to finish the lift, that would be no good. If you're pressing up and you clip the rack and you bump it, as long as it doesn't help you, you're going to be fine. All right, this must be a new one, right? Failure to lower the underside of the elbows level to or below the top surface of each shoulder joint. We just covered that, spent some time. Not going to beat a dead horse there. And then failure to comply with any of the items outlined under rules and performance. So basically, 1 through 10, the rules are don't do these. And then number 11 is follow rules 1 through 10. Okay. All right. So that does it for the bench. Hopefully that kind of clarified some things. I know it is the most technical lift, and I suggest that you go back and watch this over or read through the rule book yourself, getting ready for your first meet. I will say it's daunting, but you will be fine, right? Especially at your first local meet, people will work with you and you'll get through the process. And a few years down the road, you'll, have everything completely down. So once again, thanks for swinging by and watching the video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. We're building a nice community over here, which is awesome. Hoping to keep these coming. And until next time, happy lifting.